morning, everyone. I'm not in the field with the cows today. I thought I'd do something a bit more business-like today and talk a little bit about strategy. I am still in the UK. It's another glorious day, really, really warm. We're not having much rain, so we're trying to water the lawn as much as possible so things don't die. But they do tell me that this is not typical English weather. And indeed, I certainly don't remember it being so lovely when I was living in London. But I'm certainly enjoying it. Tomorrow I'm heading off to Berlin and I'll be back in London at the end of the month. So, hi Erin. So, what I wanted to talk about today was strategy and what does it mean for small business owners? As you know, I work a lot with entrepreneurs and small to medium-sized businesses, and I help them nail their strategy effectively. But what does it mean? Well, to be frank, it's a pretty overused, pretty confused word. I've heard it bandied around in small business and even in corporate, and it's really not understood very well. Basically, it's deciding where you want to be, working out where you are now, and filling the gap between the two. And that definition applies pretty much to strategy in anything, whether you are running a business, whether you're in corporate, or whether you're even trying to work out where you want your own life to go. So the principles that I'm going to talk about are applicable to all of them. And they're pretty universal and they're fairly simple practices to understand. If you obviously need any more information, just drop me a note or put a comment in below. So what I'm going to talk about is what I call my ABE model. It's a pretty simple model. And there are 3 steps in terms of managing a strategy in your business. It's assessing where you are and where you want to be, and that's going to give you clarity. It's then designing a plan and your priorities that are going to get you where you want to be, and it's then executing. So designing your priorities are really, ciao Bruno, hi Martin. So designing your priorities are really going to give you focus. So the first 2 steps give you clarity and focus, and then the execution side of things is what's actually going to help you achieve where you need to go. Both execution and strategy are just as important as the other. I've been involved in many debates over the years, but quite frankly, without the other is pointless. So in terms of assessment, well, what do you need to do? You've got a business, but you need to understand where your business is at. And that involves not just your business itself, what its strengths and weaknesses are, but also where your people are at and what you're good at. Then you need to work out what's going on in your environment. Nobody operates in a vacuum. You have competitors. What are they doing? What are they doing well, not doing well? What's going on in the bigger environment in terms of political, technical, social, all those sorts of things. And I do have templates if anybody needs them that can help you do this and work this out. And then, of course, you need to think about where it is you want to be. Begin with the end in mind. Jim Collins actually calls this your big, hairy, audacious goal. I think that's a really cool term for it. But basically, if you were climbing a mountain, you need to figure out what the top of that mountain looks like, where it is, and what it looks like. And essentially, this assessment is also going to tell you where you're at the moment and more or less what that climb is going to look like. And I quite like this analogy of climbing a mountain. I think it's a good one in terms of developing a strategy. Because what we then do is we design some priorities. So there is no point in designing priorities for 5 years. And I think at this stage, the way the world is changing, there is no point in even changing priorities setting priorities for a year. So what I like to do is I'd like to create a 90-day scorecard with priorities. It's small, it's flexible, it's doable, and it's kind of like bite-sized chunks that are really quite easy to achieve. Now, these priorities are going to be effectively like mini goals, but what's also important about them is that they break things down into easy, digestible steps, but they actually have things called KPIs. All that is effectively is a way of measuring whether you're actually achieving your priority or not. So, for example, if you want to grow your business in the next 90 days, you'd need to know how many customers you're going to get on board. Or if you perhaps want to diversify, it would be not just how many customers, but how many new customers or how many more products you're selling to old customers. The important thing about designing your priorities is you must be ruthless. You must choose a small focused number. And all too often I see people making the mistake of having 20 to 30. It's impossible to achieve them. Mark Twain actually said, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. My point is, it's not easy to do this, but you must factor in the fact that you're going to have a whole number of fires coming up that you have to deal with. So the more focused your priorities are, the more effective your plan is going to be, and the more likely you are to actually achieve them. It also reduces the overwhelm as well. And what I use is I use something called a scorecard, which I can also show. I'll show you in another video how I do that. But that effectively becomes like a mini dashboard on a page that you then use in the execution side of things. So execution is a little bit more about rhythm. It's about discipline and consistency. And this might sound strange, but rhythm is actually going to set you free. And that discipline will set you free because it becomes a habit. And the more you do it, the better you actually get at it. It becomes a way of systemizing your business, and it also becomes a way, as you grow, of helping your people do the same things. And I've seen this again and again, whether it's in large businesses or small businesses, where once this becomes a habit, it actually becomes a competitive advantage in the business. Plus, it frees up the business owner to actually do the stuff that matters, to get out there, to talk to clients, to think about building the business, not about managing the day-to-day. Because you know what, when you're down in the weeds, trying to cut your way through that, it becomes very difficult to see the big picture. And often, all too often, it happens that the business owners really get bogged down in that. So they don't achieve their goals and they lose their way. Rhythm is also important in terms of checking how you're going. So I like to check my scorecard sometimes daily, at least weekly. And the other important thing is that you do continuous environmental scanning and improvement. The world is not standing still. Your business is not in a vacuum. I like to talk to customers at least once a week about what's going on in their business. What do they need? What's happening with my competitors? And I then feed that into the next 90-day cycle. You see, if you do a year-long cycle or a year-long dashboard, you can't actually adjust things very quickly. And that's why I come down to these nice 90-day chunks. So once that rolls into the next 90 days, you obviously start again with the assess, design, and execute. You don't have to obviously change your vision. That's pretty fixed. But certainly the first time you go through the cycle, it's really important to make sure that your vision is compelling and it's where you want your business to go. So essentially, just to recap, there are 3 stages to this. There is assess. So that's really do an internal and external assessment of your business, as well as your capabilities as a leader. That's going to give you clarity around where you are and where you want to go. And that'll also tell you what your gaps are. And once you know that, you can design your priorities for the next 90 days. You need to really work out in a very, very focused way what you need to do. And those priorities are going to involve measures, which then become a scorecard. It becomes a dashboard. Think of a cricket game or a scoreboard at any sports event. You need to know what's going on. The third element, obviously, is execution. And execution involves rhythm, consistency, continuous improvement, and data. You have to make these a habit in your business because that is what's going to help you achieve. That also then obviously feeds into the next 90-day cycle. And so you go. And this then becomes a habit within the business. The last element I haven't spoken about today, and it's a big one, and I will speak about it at another point, is leadership. And it's a bit like the word strategy. It's overused and it almost has become meaningless. But in terms of the model that I use and the way I think of leadership and the way I coach it, it's really around building vision and helping to engage people around that. And that also includes strategic thinking. The other element, and there's 4 elements, is about managing change. Change is constant. It's almost ironic in a way. But the ability to actually manage that change, both within yourself and your business, is very important. And it is a skill, and it's a skill that can be learned. Self-development is another skill. And by that, I don't just mean being in the right frame of mind or being positive. I'm actually talking about functional development, learning. Some of the greatest leaders, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, they read at least for an hour every day. So you have to do some sort of continuous learning as a business owner because you know what? Education and those skills are something no one's ever going to take away from you. That is an asset, and it's not to be underestimated. And then the final element is obviously to, oh, I've lost my train of thought. The final element, I can't really remember the final element. Anyway, I'm sorry about that, but I will talk about the leadership model in another video. And I will share some tips with you on how to actually build that. It's very often overlooked, but the behavioral side of actually managing your strategy and executing your strategy is very, very important, because anybody can systemize things, but at the end of the day, it's actually the people that are going to make it happen. And that includes you as the business owner too. So guys, I hope this was useful to you. It is a lot of information. I have spoken a lot, and if you want to find out a bit more, or quite frankly, I've just confused the hell out of you, you can actually find my business results blueprint on my website. It's downloadable. Quite frankly, it's beautiful, thanks to Nikki James. Nikki, I think you're watching, so I'm glad to you. Thank you for that. And my website is www.angelasedran.com. Have a wonderful day. I'm off to actually do a podcast now, or an interview with Pedro Murata, which I'm very excited about. And wherever you are in this beautiful world, I hope you have a wonderful evening or day. Bye.